And welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. My name is Michael Cipes. You can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz, and I'm here with my partners, Jeremy Browand.
Find me on Twitter at Dynasty Madman, Dynasty.
What? And Shane Manila.
Why are we on all like government name?
I don't know. Why was there a delay before you started talking?
I was trying to figure out why you're using my full government name. Like, is someone listening and shit? Like, oh, if you're looking for Shane Manila,
they're always
right.
Wait a second. This is episode 115. I have said Shane Manila at the beginning of every single show for 115 episodes.
He doesn't listen.
No, I don't think that's correct.
What have I? You're saying that I've only ever said and Shane? I've never said that once.
Probably, or my Twitter handle.
Shane, we're here with that Shane guy.
Shane is the worst. At Shane is the worst on the Twitter box.
Oh my God!
Also follow us on the Instagram, DynastyTradesHQ.
Oh,
on Instagram. We're putting really dope stuff out on the Instagram.
And we're gonna have a Periscope, and we're gonna have the best. And these guys don't know it. I mentioned it before the show, and they both said yes, but they don't know what they're saying yes to. But I'm gonna get both of them on TikTok too. It's gonna be pretty funny.
No, I know what TikTok is. That's 14-year-old girls. They do dances, and then they play practical jokes on people.
Well, yeah, but there's also a lot of celebrities on there too, and I think it'll be pretty funny to see. Okay, so listen, we actually have a guest that's sitting in the room laughing. I'm sorry. Tonight we have Jen Eakins here at the Monday Mommy. Jen, thank you for joining us tonight.
What up?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
I'm sorry Shane has already cursed 3 times in the opening so far.
The news segment already.
Cursing does nothing for. I'm good. You can keep on.
And Shane is right. We skipped the news because whatever the news is going on, you guys already all know the combine started.
There's combine, NFL combine, and
we'll get to that.
No, we won't. Who gives a shit? Hey, don't base your rankings on the combine unless somebody falls on their face.
Oh my
gosh! I
gosh!
want to see who runs the 40-yard dash the fastest, because I put my draft picks in order of who ran the fastest. I don't even care if they're good at football. Just like the fastest guys to the slowest guys, and that's how. I'm kidding.
Wait a second.
I mine by hand size, so.
And I was just gonna comment. I'm not sharing a team with you, Jeremy, if that's what you're gonna do. So speaking of combine, I'm sure Jen, you're all into the combine, right?
Yeah, no, I'm really not.
I know.
I can't. I just can't get behind all that. People that geek out over the wingspan. No, not happening.
Well, for our listeners that may not be familiar with your work, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
I am the senior editor / writer at 4for4 Football, and I I cover tight ends and kickers for streaming purposes, and then I do all kinds of other things there. That's pretty much it in a nutshell for fantasy purposes. I mean, I could get into my whole life story, but we won't do that. But fantasy-wise, that's where I'm at.
No, that's pretty great. And it's funny because the reason I made the joke about the combine was because you wanted to let us know prior to doing the show that you're more focused on redraft fantasy football than dynasty, correct?
Yeah, and I know it's not a common thing but yeah, redraft is my jam. I stay with it. I've done it this will be my 24th year. And I know, listen, I understand the appeal of dynasty. I get it. I get the whole chess and checkers thing that everyone says. But for me, like, I like best ball too. I mean, I do play best ball. Dynasty, like, it's just too much for me. I don't, I know my limit. I've got a kid. I just don't want to. I know if I start, it'll become a whole thing, and I just don't want to go there. So it's like
talking about it for 24 years, having played it for 24 years, Mike and I can relate to that.
Yeah.
We've been playing it since like 1991 or something. I have 1990 or 91, I forget which.
Yeah, my first year was 96, so I think this will be whatever that is.
So long, yeah. It's a long time.
It's the olden days.
If you think about it this way, so redraft is kind of like cocaine, right? Like you can kind of pick it up and stop it whenever you want.
What? Wait a second. Who can pick up and stop cocaine whenever they want?
I know lots of people like weekend casual cocaine users. And then like Dynasty's like crack. Like once you smoke it, you're like, oh, I need more. And then you can't stop.
Right. Right, and I totally get that, and I'm not one of those like I kind of know where I am. I pick my lane and I'm there, and I understand a lot of people have tried to convince me to do Dynasty, and I get it. I just have purposely kind of stayed away just to kind of for my sanity, my family's sanity, all that stuff.
That is weird though. That is one thing. Like, so when I didn't play redraft fantasy football, I don't know when. There was a few years I stopped playing any fantasy a long time ago before I picked up with Dynasty again. So like 6 years ago, none of my friends that played redraft were trying to convince me to play redraft leagues. But everyone that plays Dynasty League tries to convert redraft players.
It's true.
We're like Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on everyone's door. Like, have you heard the good news? Dynasty football.
Just do it, man.
It's so funny that you say that. I've never really thought about it, but you're correct. The crack analogy was right. I don't believe the cocaine analogy was right though. But it is true that a lot of people do that. However, if Jen focuses on kickers, there's not a lot of Dynasty leagues out there that use kickers though.
You guys, I am like the lone. There's like 3 of us out there, and Denny Carter and Andy Behrens. I think that's it. But like, I love kickers. I'm all about it. And you know what? And Jeremy, we've talked about this before. It makes a huge difference. Like, especially just in redraft, like people write it off, don't care, don't give a shit. But you know what? It's like a 10-point swing every week if you actually pay attention and stream them. And so, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of kickers, and everyone laughs at it. But the truth of the matter is, it can actually make a difference in your league.
When we used to play in leagues, predominantly with kickers, I lost so many games based on kickers, and you just write it. I think part of the reason I didn't want to play using kickers is much about that, not winning and not knowing who to play. It's not my favorite position either, the kicking game in football, but there's an angle that's hard to figure. It is
like
true.
In the actual game of football, I'm not super into kickers. I'd rather them go for it, whatever. But like for fantasy purposes, I'm totally down with it, because if you look at Vegas odds, you can actually pick kicker, and last year I actually did a really good job streaming, and so I feel like it can make a difference, and everyone just either just picks one and rides it out through the season, and they're like, I don't give a shit, whatever. But if you actually pay attention and you week to week pick the guys that you can actually, like I said, get a 10-point swing sometimes. It's
funny, the only league that I still have kickers in is my home Dynasty league, but I've had Justin Tucker as my kicker for the last 5 years. So
yeah, there's only 1 or 2 that you can do that. Just Tucker and Butker. There's a couple of them you could just ride, but if you just stream them every week, it actually it can be advantageous.
That's my problem with streaming them is one, I never want to read a kicker article because I'm like, no, I'm better than this. I am better than this as a human being.
I'm going to forward you mine every single week.
You should do it.
Oh my God, Jen, that would be so great.
If you do, I will read it, because I do have at least 2 leagues where I still have kickers, and I've done things like where I've picked up a kicker that's not even in the league anymore, not even knowing, because I pay that little attention to them.
Well, you know what? Last year was kind of there was a lot of weird turnover to where midway through the season, I'm doing the articles. I'm like, I could just make up names and no one would even know. Is this a real person? I don't know. There was a ton of random.
Frank Zappa.
That is true. There was a lot of kickers last year. I have a 4for4 membership, and I read mostly Mike Wallert. I really love all his IDP stuff and everything. But in the leagues where there's still a redraft where there's kickers, I've read your streaming stuff a lot. In my home league, I have Justin Tucker, but when I do these charity ones, I don't. So I've used your streaming stuff and added kickers based on what you've written on your articles.
And you're a good writer. not everybody is. So I'd probably read anything you wrote. You could write something about Shane, and I'd read that.
Well, I'm a writer.
I wouldn't.
I'm a writer, that was my college, all that. I'm a writer before I'm a fan of Santa's. I just kind of ended up in that realm. But yes, I'm a writer.
Did you write anywhere non-football, fantasy football, or football related?
I wrote for Bleacher Report. In the beginning of my career, I was the Denver Broncos, whatever, I forgot what they call it, featured contributor, whatever. But I covered the Broncos for Bleacher for 2 seasons, and then I towed the line between real and fantasy for a couple years, and then I finally just kind of ended up talking to Josh one day, and he hired me, and I just kind of went full fantasy, and I haven't looked back. It's great. I love obviously the NFL, and I wanted to work in the NFL. And it's not easy. And so fantasy, I just kind of found my way, and it's been great. And I really do not regret making the leap Because there's days where I, spent like the combine. I'm watching all this. I'm like, I'm so happy I don't have to go like cover this crap.
Oh man, this time of the year is just rough. Yeah, all over Twitter and everything.
I'm like, I'm so like, and especially like the Broncos. It's been such a shit show. I'm like, thank God I don't have to actually cover that anymore.
So you went from living down here in South Florida, like we had talked before the show started that you lived down here in South Florida, and then you went to Denver. So you went from dealing with Dolphins to Broncos?
Kind of. I took a 6-year break. I went to college in Georgia. I went to the University of Georgia, and then I lived in Atlanta for 2 years after. So I was in Atlanta. I mean, I did nothing with the Falcons. I actually worked for the Atlanta Hawks when I lived in Atlanta. Yeah. That was my first job out of college. But yeah, and then it's funny, when I first got to Denver, I absolutely hated the Broncos. I mean, I've been a Dolphin fan, since birth. And Elway was here when I got here, and I was just like, no way. And I hated him. And then it's just like the years. I've lived in Denver now for 23 years. So they just kind of grew on me. And then now that I have a kid and he's a Bronco fan. So you just they grew on me and I became a Bronco fan. I still love the Dolphins. I always will, forever and ever. But, I kind of morphed into, I don't know. It's funny,
it takes time.
Well, there's a lot of people that feel like you can't have more than one team, but I think that's bullshit. I have two.
I agree. Part of the reason I went into fantasy was because I was a Dolphins fan, and it was very difficult, in the 90s and stuff like that. Well, you mentioned that you do kickers and you do tight ends, and that was actually why we brought you on tonight. We were going to discuss with you. We have a lot of questions for you about tight ends, and Jeremy, I know you wanted to start off the conversation with the 2019 rookies.
Oh, I just wanted to see how things shook out in 2019 because, the thing with tight ends, and Jen alluded to it with kickers, the thing that bothers me the most is having to stream positions and think that hard all the time. I love having a good tight end on my team, on my rosters. But I wanted to talk to Jen before about, rookies and how they were going to fare in 2019, how they worked out and, what you learned, what you think going forward on those players, the Noah Fants and so on. And even, the sophomore guys like Gesicki and, how are you looking at and valuing those players going forward? It seems like we've had like a real just explosion of tight end value. So many guys seem like they're poised for success in the NFL. And I want to know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because usually in years past, we kind of have a curve, you've got the top tier and then you're like all the way in, scrub bill. And I feel like now, some of these guys, especially the sophomores, or this year coming up sophomores, and then I guess the guys that'll be in their third year, whatever, we are getting kind of a middle tier, which is kind of fun. I think, aside from the rookies, I mean, middle tier wise, you've got guys like, you've got Waller, you've got Higbee, you've got Andrews. There are guys that are actually emerging. So it's not just, okay, the top three, and then all of a sudden you're at the bottom. But I think some of the rookies from last year, I think there's a few good ones. I think not. I think some of them still have a little bit of time. I think, you mentioned Fant. He's kind of interesting. Fant is a guy that, he's got big play potential, right? We've seen it, but he really only had 2 good games last year. So I think this year people are kind of fired up about him. I don't know. I think his ceiling isn't fantastic. I think you've got Drew Lock and Pat Shurmur. I don't know that that's going to be a great ceiling.
Yeah.
I think Fant is someone that, okay, dynasty, whatever, but like best ball, you may want to throw something at him later. But I think in redraft, I think he might end up being a streamer. I don't think he's someone that I would actually draft in redraft. You've got Hawkinson, which I don't know. I've never been a fan, so I mean, not that it's been that long, but last year I was not. People were so high on him last year before the season, like and then he had that first game, and everyone's like, woo-hoo, and then after that, he completely fell off, and I don't know. He's someone, once again, I'm not going after him in any way. I think if you want to throw, a late round at him in best ball or something, or stash him in dynasty, I guess that's the term. But I think that in redraft, I'm staying away from him. A guy that I do like, I like Irv Smith Jr. I think he's one that, he had basically, I was looking, he had really close numbers to Rudolph last year. I mean, he had 36 receptions for 311 yards. Rudolph had 39 for 367. I mean, the only real difference in those two is obviously in the end zone. Rudolph, can dominate there, and he's not. I like him. I mean, considering also, he's on, the Vikings were run first anyway. So I think Smith did pretty well considering. So he's someone I would kind of look at, Who else do we have in that tier? Oh, you got Josh Oliver. He's excited. No, I don't know.
Him.
He could be the starter, right? I mean, think about it. Last year, right? Jacksonville went through, I think, 7 tight ends, which is insane. But I think Oliver, unless, there's been some rumors of Hunter Henry going to the Jags. I don't know what that really is, but if he's the starter, I guess he's worthy of a look. But
you mentioned Josh Oliver. The other one I was going to ask you about, what about Jace Sternberger?
Yeah, you know what? I think, for him, I think Graham is probably a cap casualty, right? We assume Jimmy Graham's gone. I
think so.
So, he could be the starter, but then again, we never know. The Packers could absolutely sign a free agent. I don't know who they'd be looking at, but I think that Sternberger is one of those things. There's all this talk of him with, pass catching ability, blah, 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 but we haven't really seen it. So
right.
I think he's somebody,
Show us.
Well, yeah, he got hurt and then Graham was there. And so, I think he's someone you could, once again, throw a dart at late, but I definitely wouldn't target him for a redraft. One other guy is Dawson Knox. I think he has potential. The Bills are kind of weird and you never know what's going to happen there. But he had a decent rookie year. considering. So he's someone that I don't know.
So just because I'm a fanatic anyway, and he was my tight end last year coming out of the draft. Even though everybody was in love with Hawkinson for all the wrong reasons, or whatever. But so just looking up Pat Shurmur's history with tight ends as an offensive coordinator. So he had Zach Ertz, who I think he had him in his first and his second year. Zach Ertz had like 859 receiving yards in one of his years with Shurmur. And then just looking at Kyle Rudolph, who I think we agree Fant's a better receiving tight end than Rudolph. Rudolph finished as the tight end, if I learn how to move my screen so I can say it, tight end 3 in 2016 and the tight end 9 in 2017 under Shurmur. So that's what gives me hope for Fant. But yeah, in redraft, you definitely won't have to draft him early. I don't think anyone's going to be jumping on him.
No.
The good news is there's really nobody else there right now other than Sutton that's catching passes. So, he could, his volume should increase. I just worry a little bit about his ceiling. But, last year he was a decent streamer in the end of the season. He was in pretty much every one of my articles just because it's Slim Pickens anyway. So it was always like, Fant, But I think he definitely has potential out of that, out of the rookie crew, or I guess the sophomore crew now.
Yeah, and then like you were saying, Jace Sternberger, Green Bay. That I liked him before the season, but he didn't. I don't even remember what happened to him in the season. Was he on the IR all year?
Well, yeah, that was the reason I brought him up, because just like the Josh Oliver thing, both of them, Jace and Josh, there was a lot of talk about them going into the season, and then both of them were injured and didn't play. That's why I had mentioned him when she was talking about Josh.
Because I think and I could be wrong, but I think Dawson Knox, Josh Oliver, and Jace Sternberger were all third rounders.
I just looked up Sternberger. Somehow it says he played 6 games, but
did he? Well, it was late then. He didn't play in the beginning of the year. It must have been late because I had him on IR.
He played weeks 9 through. I don't know.
Yeah, there
and then
you go.
It says here, he had 1 target. So I don't know.
It's not good.
Third rounder.
Not ideal.
So Josh Oliver went in the 3rd round. He was the first of the 3 to go to obviously the Jags. But if they're already looking at trying to get Hunter Henry, that doesn't bode well for him. Jace Sternberger went to Green Bay, 3rd round, 75th overall. And then I don't feel like looking any longer. Khalil Waring, that was a guy a lot of us liked. And he did nothing.
I think that guy's going to be pretty good, honestly.
And Dawson Knox. Yeah, Dawson Knox went in the 3rd round as well. So we had all these 3rd round tight ends that, especially in Dynasty, and I'm sure.
And I like them all. I think they all have talent, to work out. The funny thing in Jacksonville is that they had so many tight ends, and they got hurt, but they used them a lot. I don't know how that's going to shake out with Jay Gruden now, but I remember, Jen, you were really, in best ball and redrafts, you were looking at Jeff Swaim as a value last year.
I loved him. Man. Screwed me. He got hurt. I loved him. But But then he came back at the end. I remember I was so
turned it on at the end, right?
I was like, all my best ball shares are finally going to do something because I had him everywhere because he was available. And so I always was just grabbing him in the 20th round because I was like, there's nobody else there. But,
and he was actually good in Denver at the end of 2018, wasn't he? Didn't he have a few games where he was decent?
He wasn't in Denver. He was in Dallas.
It wasn't him. So I'm getting him confused with.
Yeah, he was in Dallas before that.
There's another tight end.
Green.
Denver. There's another guy I got him confused with.
It's all right. I could cut that out. That's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
I wouldn't cut it out.
I would cut it out. I'll leave it in.
You know, the one that I got late in a lot of leagues last year was Darren Waller, and he seemed to show up really great.
Oh yeah.
Darren Waller was
a monster, right?
Darren Waller was tight end 3 overall in fantasy points last year,
and he was easy to get late last year in every league that I got him.
I had him and Mark Andrews completely carried every one of my teams last year, and I got them both late, and they were great.
So, Jen, how are you concerned at all that Darren Waller is a product of whichever car it is quarterbacking there? Just
he always says the wrong one, Jen. That's why he says that.
I do it all the time with those guys.
So he has this hard on for tight ends, and also as soon as Hunter, Jesus, I can't remember anyone's name tonight. The little slot receiver, Hunter.
My God.
God damn it! Yeah,
Renfro?
the Clemson kid.
Renfro.
Yeah. As soon as he started seeing targets, Waller, it seemed like his targets decreased. Are you concerned?
Definitely changed. There was a line of demarcation where suddenly Waller wasn't doing that. Like you said, Shane, the stats just changed, dude.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna let other people reach for Waller because obviously right now ADP is kind of the Wild West, but I know right now he's a 6th rounder in redraft, and I think he's a let's see. Who are we talking about again?
Darren Waller.
There we go. He's a 5th rounder in best ball right now on
that seems high.
Yeah. So
nice.
I would get him in the 7th or 8th or whatever, but I don't think he's going to be there. So I'm going to let other people take him. I would rather, I'd rather go with Andrew. Well, it depends. I'd rather go with Andrews or even Higbee. Wait farther and go down. I'm usually in my normal. I'm usually either top 3 guy or wait for the bottom, but I don't know.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So a top 3 top tier guy or wait until until later in the draft. So that's your strategy. You miss on those top guys that you can plug in every week, and that's how you ended up right with Andrews and Waller. Is that because early on in early best balls you were probably scoring on those, right? Tell the listeners how you play that. I don't want to speak for you, but I think I get where you're going with that.
Honestly, that is it. And it's funny because a lot of people don't want to go for the Kelsey Kittle, but I actually, in preparation for this podcast, I actually looked up opportunity costs last year of Kelsey, Kittle, and Ertz just to kind of see. Mm-hmm. So Kelsey was 17th for non-quarterbacks, right, in PPR points. So he was 17th overall. So it sits right in the 2nd round where he's going. Kittle was 33rd, and then Ertz was 41st. So that's among non-quarterbacks for total, So people wonder if it's worth it to go for those guys. When you look at that, it is. They're gonna get you, similar, same points as other guys in that range. But last year my strategy was that and obviously it depends on where you are in a draft and who's there and all that. But I'm either going to go for one of those guys or I'm going to wait and wait farther down. This year, though, is a little different. Those guys like Waller and, Andrews, they're going to go a little sooner. So, you have to decide if those guys are worth it. If, like you said, if Waller is just kind of was in the right place at the right time last year and then he's going to decrease this year, who knows? There's other people that obviously love Hooper, and Ingram, and those are guys that I don't go for usually. But then again, Hooper, if you were lucky enough to grab him last year, he was great. But he's as I've said, he's the unsexiest tight end out there. He's just something I never want to go with Hooper.
And he's also not guaranteed to be on the Falcons this year, right?
No, I don't think he is. I don't know. Things that I've read say that he's probably not. They don't have the money. But
I think he's going to get paid somewhere. I do.
at the combine, I forget the Atlanta GM's name, but he basically said we're going to let him. We want to bring him back, but we're going to let him test the open market. They
Right.
they have like the third least cap space or something. They can't afford to bring him back at this point.
Right. So what do you think? What do you think for? I mean, you already said what you just thought about him. What do you think about him if he goes somewhere else? So.
I guess it depends on where he lands. I mean, I don't even know where the rumors are flying of where he's going to go. I don't even know who. I mean, there's probably a lot of teams out there that could use a tight end. You know, it's one of those things.
There's
it's
definitely.
the same with like, well, hold on, let me see. It's the same, you know, someone like Ebron. It's like, I don't want to touch him, and a lot of people won't touch him, but I'm sure there are teams out there that are, you know, that will sign him thinking that, you know, they're going to get Ebron from 2018. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
offense dependent, yeah.
It'd be nice if we could get this normalized version of Eric Ebron in between the guy that dropped everything in sight and the guy that all he did was catch touchdowns. If I could just get an Eric Ebron that gets like 65 receptions a year, 750 yards.
You don't though. You either get the stud, or you get the guy who drops and runs bad routes.
Yeah.
Of the two though, gotta believe Hooper would have a good chance on another team because he's pretty complete tight end all around. Obviously, he's not necessarily the athlete and pass catcher that Ebron could be if he was consistent, but he's a consistent. Hooper's been consistently good, so I mean, I would buy him over Ebron. Not knowing landing spot, I guess, but landing spot's going to determine those guys, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Same with Henry. I mean, Henry's a guy that some people are. He's his injuries. He's burned people for sure. But at the same time, he's missed, I think, 20 games in the last 2 seasons. But when he's, I know, but but when he's on, he's on. He's huge and he's athletic and, he catches things. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, the only rumor I saw was the Jags. I don't even know if that was real. So I don't know where else.
But you didn't hear the Patriots?
Everybody gets the Patriots.
I'm pretty sure that, as most things on Patriot-related player movement started on Twitter.
Yeah.
With just some random saying, where it would look great there. Because any white wide receiver or any tight end that exists has to end up with the Patriots.
Yep.
Well, Jen, as a co-Dolphins fan with your Denver Broncos, what do you think about Gesicki over there in Miami?
Yeah, I mean, similar to the guys that we've discussed earlier, he's someone that I would throw something at him, best ball, or maybe you take him in, I don't know, redraft. I don't know that I'm going anywhere near him really for that. I'm not sure. I mean, we don't know really. I mean, are we looking at Fitzpatrick as the actual starter again? I mean, I don't know exactly. I haven't been really paying attention to what's going on in Dolphins camp, or not even camp, whatever, off season. So I don't know what's happening there. But I mean, the Dolphins last year was weird. I mean, all of a sudden he kind of showed up, which is great. I mean, everyone expected him, but I just don't know that I would. To me, he's a streamer. Like, he's not someone I'm going to trust as my tight end. That's for sure. I think that he's someone that, best ball, sure, maybe, but in redraft itself. I think that he's someone that, is a streamer, and he may, if he catches on in week 4 and you grab him and then you ride him for the rest of the season, that's awesome. But I don't think I'd put all my eggs in the Gesicki basket.
Yeah, right.
So I know you're not paying attention to combine stuff, Jen.
No.
But the news du jour
hand size, she is
today, either today or yesterday, I don't know. Hand size is important to women because bigger hands mean bigger gloves.
That's the only reason I'm paying attention to that.
Oh my gosh.
But I will say this, that there actually is no correlation between big hands and big feet and other things.
But you just said gloves. There's definitely a correlation.
No,
gloves, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely.
I will agree with you. I will agree with you there on that, because I live with someone that I will agree has smaller hands than me, but the rest is fine. So
Jen's husband
I think that's basically what she said.
Has a big schlong.
I'm over here with Joey Burrow hands.
It's not small. It's just.
Oh my God.
Huge. It's huge. Just say it, Jen. It doesn't matter if it's true.
She said massive. You talked over. She said massive. So.
But anyway.
Oh my God.
There was a point to that originally.
We're talking about combine and something. We were talking about Gesicki. I don't know.
Well, no.
Yeah,
actually,
Mike Gesicki. So a lot of talk about him playing the big slot for the Dolphins next year. The big slot.
He loves his adjectives.
And he did the air quotes that he makes fun of me doing.
By the way, I haven't heard the word schlong in a very long time. No, I'm serious. It's a great word, and I just don't hear it.
It is. Well, you're not a guy. You tend to say
Can we put that in the title of the show? That would be great.
The Schlong. I haven't heard of Schlong in a long time. Or
Is that Yiddish? Is that like?
Yeah, isn't it?
I think
yeah,
it
you know
is.
what? My estranged
Shane's a
wife
newly
is
minted Jewish person,
Jewish,
so-
and my mother-in-law's in town. So my current mother-in-law, soon to be, I don't know.
Oh no.
So I'll text her and ask her like, "Hey, is Schlong Yiddish?"
All right.
Maybe I could just Google it. I should probably Google it. It's
Sadly,
less
I
awkward.
text my dad that because he actually knew Yiddish, but
Oh, that's
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh no.
This show
Alright,
is just a wealth
wait.
of information. If you don't listen to this show, you're missing a lot.
All right,
Good
let's kind of steer everything back. Let's go. When you talk about Gesicki, the opposite would be O.J. Howard, where so many people were so excited about him, and then it just kind of fell flat. What do you think about O.J.?
yeah, no, not touching OJ this year, and I didn't touch him last year either. I just
Same
honestly,
here.
I would rather go with Brait like as a 20th rounder, and then go with Howard. I don't know. Obviously, I mean, last year nothing's changed, right? This year
Right.
we're coming. It's the same coaching staff, the same. It's going to be the same. I mean, I just don't see him all of a sudden breaking out and being the guy that we all thought he was going to be at some point. I think we're looking at more of this. I mean, he may get more volume. They may try whatever, but I don't think he's someone that I don't know what his. Let me see. I don't know what his ADP. I mean, last year he was like a 4th rounder.
Yeah, he was very. He
Cost
was. He
a
was
lot
pretty.
of money last
Yeah, he was pretty much 4th overall behind the big 3 guys.
Well, because every one of not every one of us, but a lot of us completely ignored Bruce Arians' history and said, "Well, he's never had a tight end like O.J. Howard," which was true.
Total
But we
projection.
underestimated how stupid Bruce Arians is,
Oh my God.
and assumed that he's shown that he's not
Yes.
actually terribly good at coaching football or personnel because he wants to bring in Philip Rivers and over
No,
Jameis.
no. Today they're saying they're offering Jameis a 2-year extension. That's been all over the news.
Then, you know what? That's not his doing, because if you listen to his quotes, he's an asshat.
But that was
and
like
he
a
doesn't
month
know what
ago,
he's
right?
doing.
Yeah.
But I agree with Jen. Yeah, nothing's changed there. Nothing's changed.
I agree.
Well,
I
especially
loved
if
it last year. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, especially if Jameis signs a 2-year extension, then definitely
think-
nothing's changed.
All the same as this year. I liked that people were high on O.J. Howard last year because I wasn't, and I liked that people decided they wanted to bail on Zach Ertz for absolutely no reason because his production was still fine. I like that too because both things worked in my favor. But I think that's the thing with tight ends. It's like we bake in these ideas about these guys because we just don't know. It's like what they're gonna do. We don't have a great idea, and we're trying to project them for things like Shane alluded to with O.J. Howard. Like, Arians has never had a tight end like this, so he's bound to use him as a receiver. I just think O.J. Howard's overrated. But what do you see happening in the NFL that affects your rankings the most? The kinds of things like tight ends, free agents changing teams for better or worse. What kinds of trends do you see that affect how you jump into a best ball or a redraft or value your tight ends? What happens to your rankings and why?
No, I don't know. I mean, honestly, like as far as next year goes, I think there's a couple things that are, you've got guys that are shifting, obviously guys that are retiring. You've got, like the Ian Thomas and Jonnu Smith. They're obviously going to bump up a little bit because you've got, Greg Olsen is gone, and I think Delaney Walker. I don't know if he's gone, but I assume
he's never going to retire.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Delaney Walker, but I think guys like that, will get a bump up, and I think it's, it's February, so it's tough to really know kind of what else is going to happen. We have to kind of see how the rest of the free agency shakes out so we can kind of see, where things are going to go. I mean, you've got, there's guys we haven't talked about that are kind of in that middle weird bubble, like Doyle, and Joku, and it's like, Herndon. It's like, what do you do with guys like that? I guess we have to kind of wait and see. It's a little early to tell where those guys are going to land, or as far as rankings go.
Yeah, I want to find out this time of year what you're doing to get yourself ready to draft tight ends and start. What you're doing this time of year to get ready to draft tight ends, going into this season and your redrafts.
Well, as I said earlier, first I kind of take a look at the top guys and make sure they're worth it, right? Because if you're if you're going to sacrifice, a first, second, or third pick, for a tight end, you want to make sure that the value is there and you're not missing out. So like I said, you're going to look at opportunity cost, see the guys around them, see if they're worth it. And really you have to do that for every round. But then I kind of go down and go to the next tier. Like, okay, so you've got the Andrews, the Waller, basically the next tier, and see, are they worth it? Are they going to be someone that's, going to get me enough points, to make it worth value of having them? And then, then I kind of see, okay, you've got rounds, 4 through 6. Maybe I'll grab this guy if he's there, maybe not. And then kind of see after that, okay, then I'm just going to wait, or I'm just going to stream because, I do write the streaming article. This will be my 5th season writing a tight end streaming article. So I do practice what I preach sometimes and do decide to stream. If those guys aren't available, I'm not afraid of that. Some people really are scared to stream or don't want to stream and they
I don't like it.
And they see, but like, I'm not afraid of it at all because based on matchups, it depends. I mean, would I rather have Kelsey and someone solid? Of course. But if I miss out on those guys, depending on where I am in a draft, I'm not afraid to kind of just be like, all right. Because the thing is with tight ends, there's always going to be someone that emerges that, you can grab in week 2 or week 3. Or there's, sadly guys that are suspended or whatever that'll show back up and, people that get hurt. And so you can always kind of fill in the gaps. It's not like where you're trying to find, a running back. I mean, it's so much harder in that, tight ends, there's always going to be someone that's going to at least, possibly get in the end zone and, get you 10 points or whatever.
Right.
See, I think for redraft, you have it with both of the positions. You do kickers and you do tight ends. Both of those positions in redraft, those are pretty good for streaming as opposed to, like you said, running backs or wide receivers. When do you start doing stuff for 4 to really start putting out? Do you put out any lists or anything, or do you just wait till the season and you do the streaming stuff for the website?
No, we have articles I've already written. We just put up some. I did like a look back at tight ends from 2019, so I kind of did that. I did one for wideouts as well, and then we start. We actually have just been having meetings and getting our content ready. So we're about to roll out a bunch of best ball content, and then we start doing player profiles and free agent stuff. But I don't do any rankings. That is all John Paulson. That is his baby. That is his everything. So nobody else ranks at 4 other than him. So I don't actually do any of the ranking. I just kind of, but yeah. So during the off season, we'll just start doing a bunch of random different content. I actually have some kicker stuff coming out, which I know. Whatever. Some may read it, some may not.
I still enjoy it. I think it's good strategy, anyways, and really.
And then
here's the
as we
thing.
go through to the season, we do perfect drafts. So we'll go through and we'll do each position. So from the one hole all the way through, and then just kind of do our perfect draft. Those are usually later, like in July and August. But so that's pretty much what we have going on. There's never, there's a mild break. Like I said, this is literally the first thing that I've even done football wise since the Super Bowl.
So we're like warming you up.
Oh no,
Exactly.
2 articles, but other than that.
So Shane, you wanted to ask something, Shane?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I know we're making fun of kickers and stuff, but
you are
honest. Probably 70% of the people that play in fantasy leagues play in redraft, and they play in leagues with kickers.
Absolutely. Yep.
I know we think Dynasty's huge and Superflex is huge and things like that, but we're actually the niche market.
It's weird though because Twitter is deceiving. It's like
very much so.
Everybody plays Dynasty, but in the real world, like nobody plays. It's weird, but it's the same. Yeah,
it is pretty funny too because we don't think about it, but not only do they have kickers, but they also have team defenses. That to me is crazy still too.
I'm in the same leagues that have kickers. I think I have at least I have 1 league left. I'm in a couple FFPC leagues, and you have
you'll have kickers in D. Yeah,
we have team defense in every one,
but
I am like literally that is my last round. I stream that no matter what. I don't even think. I pick whatever team I see. I just pick it. And
exactly.
Then I don't even pay attention.
I usually pick the one who has the latest bye week. That's what I.
Exactly. Yeah, or something like that.
Well, we had, a lot of times we talk about trades that we've done on the show, but what we actually did, since you were going to come on and talk about tight ends, we went over some of the requests that we got this week on our Twitter account at DynastyTradesHQ, where people asked us a poll question about tight ends. So we figured we'd bring up a couple of those and see what you thought on the questions that we had.
I love the first one. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have read it.
Well, so on Twitter, we had a question from Micah_DynastyFF, and he asked us in Dynasty, which unfortunately, Jen, I know that you do redraft, but it can actually be answered even though we talked about both of these guys. Which would you rather have, Mike Gesicki or O.J. Howard?
I saw that, and I responded to that poll, and it's definitely Gesicki. Even though I don't love Gesicki, I still would pick him over Howard.
Is that
in redraft and in best ball, and I guess Dynasty?
Yeah, all of the above. Yes, great answer.
Go ahead, Shane. You were about to say something?
You know what's funny, though, is you look at that. Gesicki ran away with that poll result, 62% to 38% in O.J. Howard. If you would have asked that question, well, obviously Gesicki
that wasn't even a question. I mean, that was no one would ever. But I just think O.J. Howard just burned the entire fantasy community enough that nobody's willing to step up and back him.
Well,
I still love him, and I'm hoping that Arians gets fired after another horrible season next year, and then maybe they get a guy in there that can use a tight end that can run, a 4.4 and that averages 15 yards per reception. That's my hope.
Wide receiver.
Sometimes you just get those guys that you love. Like it's like Austin Safari and Jenkins. Like I'll freaking defend that guy till the end of time. I love him. I was a fan, but unfortunately, he didn't pan out so well.
Oh my God.
I loved him.
I forgot about ASJ.
Already?
Well,
I did.
Jags earlier. I almost mentioned him because we were talking about the Jags, but I didn't. But yes, I loved him.
The next one we had on here actually has a rookie pick, and I know you don't really deal with rookie picks, so maybe Shane and Jeremy can weigh in a little bit on this one. But we had a question from MSAFRUK on Twitter, and he asked, which would you rather have, Hunter Henry or the 2.02 in the rookie draft this year?
Henry.
Okay, why? You just say Henry.
Because that's the answer. I want Hunter Henry. I know he's been injured, and I don't really value him like a lot of people. Like many people, I don't own him in a ton of places, but I still would rather have him as a starter on a team than the uncertainty of the 202. I think I could get more for him than the 202 in return as well. I think someone would pay up, like the 201 maybe, or the 112. But I think I want Hunter Henry on my team instead of the picks, personally.
Shane?
Is it Superflex?
I
should say Henry. This should be Henry by a lot. I shouldn't even ask if it's Superflex.
Yeah.
But is it?
It doesn't say, but...
I'll assume it's one quarterback because I saw a poll earlier, and that apparently is the standard by a wide majority. I'll take Henry, yeah. I don't think you can pass up a guy that has top 5 tight end potential for...
Yeah.
A pick that's going to have a 25% hit rate.
Yeah, for me that would be the choice too. It's like probably what what was it 202? So that's like the 14th pick in the draft. We do have another.
Just real quick though, quick. Look at Troy at Troy A. Allen at Jesus Christ, I'm illiterate.
Yeah.
Troy Allen 230.
What?
His picture, his Twitter, Javi. That dude is diesel. I'm just saying, he sent us our next. This isn't the next poll, but yeah, good job, buddy.
Yeah, I saw the picture. Okay, well, I do have another one here that's not on the show sheet actually, and it's from a friend of ours that we all know. It's from Aardvark TV, Mike Finaro, but he asked, in a tight end premium, who would you rather have? So for Jen, it would be, would you rather have Austin Hooper in a tight end premium or Terry McLaurin?
What's the premium?
It just says tight end premium. That's all it says.
Like 1.5, or
it just says tight end premium. That's all it says.
That's a half-assed question.
Well, that's all he wrote. So go after Finaro then. That's what he wrote.
You guys, what's happening? Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry. Really? People are wondering. The pictures all just changed. I don't know why, but okay. So what do you think, Jen?
I'm sorry. What was it again? Hooper or McLaurin?
Yes.
I mean, It depends when, what pick, what round, what you're doing. And it depends where Hooper goes. I'm gonna go Hooper. I don't know. I don't like the Redskins. I just don't like. I don't know. It's a weird, like, personal. I just don't draft any of them. I don't like them. I mean, if McLaurin ends up falling to me in some situation where he whatever, but I guess I'll go Hooper, even though I don't love Hooper either. But yes, Hooper is my answer.
Jeremy, I know your answer.
You know I'm going to say Hooper?
No,
No,
seriously?
I'm going to take straight up like that. I'm going to take Terry McLaurin.
Of
in that
course,
trade.
yeah.
I'm biased, so I'm always
Premium.
gonna take
Remember
Terry.
that. You're getting a point and a half.
Yes, but he loves Terry McLaurin, though.
Oh, okay.
I could go either way. I could be convinced, but yeah, I'm going to go McLaurin with that Hooper trade.
And Shane, you could tell Finaro that you. Yeah,
we had a trade.
It was.
You mean who to draft?
Well,
Trade.
It was a
Oh.
trade. It was a trade. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, same difference.
Say-
Which would
yeah.
you rather have?
Which would you rather have?
honestly?
It doesn't say a trade. It just says which would you rather have. So.
Value. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I mean, maybe if I don't know, based on that question, it's so open ended. Is it a 3-point premium tight end league? Because if it's a 3-point PPR for tight ends, I'm taking that. Are there touchdowns counted double?
Hey, Finaro, you know what's going on here. You could deal with Shane on the side
I'm
if
just
you
saying,
want
is
to.
it point per first down for tight ends, but not for wide receivers? There's a lot of variables there that
Oh my
I can't
God.
I can't answer that correctly.
Do you
But
know
in
how
a
many?
vacuum, because Michael hates that.
In a vacuum.
Hey,
I'm going
I
to assume
agree. It's all in
a
a vacuum.
1.05 PPR tight end premium league, which is barely a premium, not 1.5,
Oh my
1.05.
God.
And I'm going to say McLaurin.
I hope Finaro hears this. So,
But if it's 1.75 or more, then I will go Hooper.
1.75 is a lot. Yeah, 2 points practically. Sure.
oh
Yes.
my gosh,
I
I
agree.
I'm in a 2-point PPR tight end league.
I'm
Let
so.
me ask you that.
You know what's funny? You know what I just noticed, guys?
What?
They both, in the leagues that I'm in, they both scored exactly 186 points last year.
Really?
PPR score.
Maybe that's why he has that
PPR.
up there.
And
Maybe
it's Hooper if it's tight end premium.
there you
Yep,
go.
There you go. That would be the tiebreak.
If people could see the video, which we don't have tonight, Jen put her hands up in the air.
Let's
I win.
so let's just jump into our Patreon episode. And,
Wait. Before we jump into our
Kate loves
Patreon
it.
episode, what?
He's the greatest derailer ever.
It is so
I was
crazy.
going to see if Jen wanted to jump on it because we can continue talking about tight ends and tight end
I'm so
premium.
confused that I only see
Like
half
the
your
joint.
face. It's so weird.
I know it's so. Shane was
He
actually
never
on a.
used to do that, but he changed location.
I know, and he was on a show last night. Shane, which show were you on yesterday?
Hi, I'm Shane. Can you hear me?
He's like that.
No,
Yeah.
he was.
Well, I didn't realize they were taped.
But you.
I'm not used to being on video.
So
So you know what I mean? Like someone's YouTubing it and I'm just like, uh-huh.
And that's why I mentioned it. And people can't see it right now, but what Jen is speaking about is Shane, for whatever reason, is in the lower right-hand corner of his video. And you've got this giant open space on the left of his head. It's actually pretty funny.
Taking up a corner of it with his face. I was going to say something earlier, but, being nicer than Shane, I decided to let it go.
But Jen, I know it's all confusing, and this happens to us sometimes. It goes all over the place. But what he's asking you is, when we wrap up the show, we do usually do a Patreon show. Would you mind sitting with us for a little bit? It's only about 10, 15 minutes talking with us on a Patreon show. Okay. Well, then before we wrap it up, Shane, Jeremy, do you guys have any other questions for Jen before we wrap up the show and go on to the Patreon show?
Yeah, it is weird with Dynasty though. Like it's the only form of fantasy where we feel compelled to force people to join us.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I used to have people that would honestly try to bully me into it, but I think people just gave up, and I just don't. I don't even engage with that when people are like, "Oh, it's chess versus," It's like you're not insulting my intelligence by telling me I don't play Dynasty. I'm cool. I'm good with it.
I've never tried that tact where I'm like, oh, well, you know what I mean? But I have tried to you'll like it better. And they're like, how do you know? And I'm like, I just know, just do it.
Yeah, and that's my only point earlier when we were talking about different things, was that I wanted Jen to understand that I mean, a lot of us get that redraft and Dynasty are two different ways to play a game, and the level of competition for me makes the biggest difference in how challenging the league is. I mean, you can clean it up in Dynasty leagues and stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and I agree with it, because there are certain leagues that it's I'm in one redraft league that it's legit. I mean, everybody in there, pays attention, knows what they're doing, and then you could be in other leagues where it's like, you could just run the table just by barely doing the minimum.
Well, I think, Jen, if you ever do decide to do Dynasty, let us know, and we'll help you out getting into a league. Everybody always wants to be in a league with Shane, so we'll work something out for you.
Why do you think that is, Mike? No, I'm just kidding. Shane,
Believe me, Jeremy, I know why. That's not why most people want to, but I know why I want to. So listen, Jen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know some things go all over the place, and people comment to me a lot of times that I have one of the hardest jobs in podcasts to keep everybody on track. But before we go, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you? Anything else you want to let people know?
Sure, yeah. I am on Twitter at the Monday Mommy, and I am at 4for4. Yeah, that's pretty much all that I am.
That's awesome. I love how you cut to the chase.
My brain. You can find. I write, like I said, I write a streaming kicker column. I write a streaming tight end column. I write a dead weight report every week. Players to drop it. Every Tuesday, and I do. I don't know what
the hand size article.
No, that's a cool.
I'm going to be doing a hand size article coming out after the combine, ranking every player of every position by hand size, all the way down the line, including O-line. Yeah, it'll all be there.
You kind of blew past it, but that's actually a pretty interesting thing. You write an article every week of who to drop dead weight.
Yeah, it's called the Dead Weight Report. I do it every Tuesday, and it's basically guys that are safe to drop and redraft. That So I this is the first year I did it, and it was actually super fun. I loved it. It was my favorite article to write of the week.
That sounds cool. That sounds like a fun thing.
Well, there's a couple things. So I got a couple things now I want to talk to Jen about on the patron show.
Okay.
So if you're not a patron, off because you're not getting to hear any more of this. And if you are a patron, good for you.
Well, wait, let's wrap it up. Why don't you tell people about our Patreon account?
Wrapped it up.
I know, but we didn't tell everybody about the Patreon.
It's literally over.
We usually talk about.
I just said if you're not a patron.
Okay. So that's the way you're going to advertise it. Okay.
Go be a patron.
All right. Join our Patreon account. Go to our Twitter account at DynastyTradesHQ. Oh, my God. Go to iTunes.
I totally agree with Shane. He closed the show. Boom.
Go to iTunes at DynastyTradesHQ. Give us a rate and review. And, okay, you're completely correct. We're going to end right now and go do a Patreon show. So thanks, guys, for listening. And say goodbye. Say goodbye, Shane. Say goodbye, Jeremy.
So